working class boys.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a lot of respect for the honourable gentleman as a fellow Berkshire MP, but I would just gently say to him it is right that people who serve our country in whatever form reflect the communities that they serve. These schemes are about levelling the playing field, not about creating an unfair advantage, and everybody who is given a place is done so on merit. This party, on this side of the House, we follow the evidence. He just follows the honourable member for Clapton.
Lammy.
Mr. Speaker, as we come to the end of celebrating Black History Month, I think it's vital that we continue to promote diversity in all workplaces. Does the Minister agree with me that it's fundamental for us to have DEI practices in all workforces so that we can fight equality, fairness, transparency, preventing discrimination, especially discrimination that far too many people still face in the workplace?
Minister.
I thank the honourable lady for her question and for her great campaigning work. I agree with her that we must do absolutely everything possible to break down all barriers to opportunity in our country.
Secretary of State Clerk continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Labour's previous definition of Islamophobia was adopted by councils which had grooming gang scandals. And it said that even talking about grooming gangs was an example of anti-Muslim racism. We know from Louise Casey public servants didn't speak up because they were scared of being called racist, and now they're bringing in a new definition, but they're refusing to tell the public what's in it. So will she commit to publishing the draft definition before it's adopted for full public scrutiny?
Minister.
Wherever there's abuse, it should be tackled, and we will be publishing details in due course.
We now come to topical still fairness. Still fairness. Topical one.
Sorry, Mr. Endometriosis care is an...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In October, we celebrated Black History Month. It's been an opportunity to renew our commitment to maintaining all the progress that we have made and ensuring that racial hatred has no place in our society. This year also marks the 60th anniversary of the Race Relations Act, enacted by a Labour government. We will continue to build on its legacy with our plans to introduce the Equality, Race and Disability Bill in this Parliament, and we have also established the Race Equality Engagement Group, chaired by the Noble Baroness Lawrence.
Endometriosis care is in urgent need of reform. I have lost track of the number of young women who have contacted me to share their horror stories, some of whom have been more than a decade to receive a diagnosis. The system is failing them, and I welcome the government's commitment to update the Women's Health Strategy, but can the Minister confirm that menstrual health conditions such as these will be at the forefront of the renewed strategy? Thank you.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend and for all the campaigning she has done on this issue. She is right that too many women suffer trauma and pain, their symptoms and concerns not taken seriously, and we are committed to prioritising women's health. We've commissioned a number of studies focused on endometriosis diagnosis, treatment and patient experience, alongside 6 research trials, totalling an investment of approximately £5.8 million. This will be an essential part of our 10-year health plan.
Secretary of State Clerk continue.
In January, the Supreme Court ruled that sex means biological sex. This was a huge victory for women's rights. But now we hear that she's kicking the EHRC's much-needed guidance into the long grass. But the law is not changing. The law is as it's always been. So will she release the guidance and make sure that women's rights are protected?
Mr. Speaker, if I may, I'd just like to say how moved I was by the interview that the Right Honourable Lady gave to The Times about her experience and that of her son. I'm really pleased that both of them are doing so well and that she's back with us in this House today. Mr. Speaker, we are committed to protecting single-sex spaces, and as I set out in this House, I welcome the clarity of the Supreme Court ruling, and providers should follow it. The EHRC have given me the Code of Practice. We're working through that. It's a lengthy document covering all of the protected characteristics. Any suggestion of delay is simply wrong. The EHRC should know that I am legally required to consult the devolved governments. The EHRC have been asked to carry out a full regulatory impact, they have not been asked to carry out a full regulatory impact assessment, but instead a minimum assessment.
Secretary of State, topicals, Florence Turner. Who's the...
Dyspraxia is a common condition, but public awareness levels are still too low. Does the Minister agree that more needs to be done across government and society to raise awareness of dyspraxia?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I do. We want a more inclusive society where neurodivergent people, including those with dyspraxia, are supported to thrive. We're working across government, supporting earlier intervention in schools, including through the Partnerships for Inclusion of Neurodiversity in Schools programme, SEND reforms coming forward in the new year. But we're also, beyond education, taking a wider view of how we ensure people with conditions like dyspraxia are not held back.
Due to the rural nature of West Dorset, SEND children face difficulty accessing education. I've got casework of a young girl with stroke whose transport was withdrawn 2 days beforehand. Will the Minister work with other departments to solve the problem of SEND children accessing education in rural areas?
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman. I recognise the concern that he has raised and that many members across this House have raised. That's why we'll be setting out our plans to make improvements to the system through the Schools White Paper, and I'd welcome the contribution of the honourable gentleman and his colleagues as part of that process, because I think it is important that we put children's interests first and get to the right system, particularly around early identification of need.
A fantastic volunteer group, the Night Angels, started by Chrissy Lowry, patrol the streets and the trains to give safety for young women. Would the Minister support this group, and also would she like to join us on a patrol donning the trademark pink fluorescent jackets? Thank you.
Minister.
The Secretary of State is already wearing a pink jacket. I just want to pay absolute tribute to the group in his constituency, and I know that the Victims and Violence Against Women and Girls Minister will be visiting Stroud very soon and has offered to don the pink jacket on our behalves.
Alison Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last night I was honoured to speak at an event you kindly hosted with the RNID. I met Craig, the Chief Executive of Action Deafness, which delivers vital services across my constituency, as well as Stuart, an academic focused on the needs of deaf young people. They told me that deaf people too often navigate support from siloed health, education and welfare systems that create barriers. So what steps is the Minister taking to coordinate cross-departmental support for deaf people to prevent them from falling between the gaps?
The Honourable Lady raises an important point, and I've been more than happy to make sure that she has a meeting with the relevant Minister to discuss her concerns and to make sure that action is being taken across government to address them.
Right, that completes those questions. Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, may I extend a warm welcome to the President of the Portuguese Parliament and his delegation, who are with us in the gallery today. We now come to Prime Minister's questions. Mr. Conor Rand.
Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, is in Brazil, attending COP30 in Belém and the Earthshot Prize alongside His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. Mr. Speaker, the thoughts of the whole House remain with those affected by the appalling scenes that we saw in Huntingdon and Peterborough, where I spent 7 years of my life at school. We thank our emergency services for their outstanding professionalism and the individuals who showed such tremendous courage to defend others. Mr. Speaker, this weekend is Remembrance Sunday. We will never forget those who fought to defend our freedom. It's been one of the greatest honours of my career to meet our troops around the world, whether in Cyprus, the Gulf or Australia. This week, the government announced the biggest renewal of armed forces housing in more than 50 years, kick-starting one of Britain's most ambitious building programmes in decades. This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I start by congratulating the Deputy Prime Minister on being the first black person to ever answer Prime Minister's question, landmark moment for this place in our country, and I hope he is proud. Mr. Speaker, my 8-year-old constituent Phoebe is battling cancer, and her parents are fundraising to help with treatment costs and to raise awareness of Phoebe's condition. And people across my constituency have been moved by her story and have come together to raise over £122,000. So will the Deputy Prime Minister join me in paying tribute to Phoebe's inspirational bravery? And will he celebrate the incredible generosity and community spirit of Altrincham and Sale West?
Yeah. Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, it's very kind of the honourable gentleman to say that, and I'm conscious that my right honourable friend, the member for Hackney North and Stoke Newington, and indeed the leader of the opposition, are both trailblazers who've stood at this dispatch box, and it's important to recognise the progress that we've been made, particularly in the wake of Black History Month. I also thank my honourable friend for raising this issue. It's heartwarming to see a community rally around someone as brave as Phoebe. So I wish Phoebe, her twin brother Eric, and her parents Lindsay and Mark the very best in their fight against cancer.
Yeah. Shall the Secretary of State for Defence, James Coughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I begin by associating myself and the opposition with the remarks by the Deputy Prime Minister about the terrible and horrific attack in Huntingdon. We wish a speedy recovery to those still in hospital and pay tribute to the brave actions of the public and the police. Now, Mr. Speaker, overnight, the father of the girl assaulted in Epping by Hadish Gabatu, the illegal immigrant, released by accident, said the government had failed them relentlessly. Now, I confess, I'm surprised the Deputy Prime Minister hasn't already apologised. So I'm going to give him an opportunity now. Will he apologise to the family concerned?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, it's great to see the honourable gentleman in his place. I had expected to see the Shadow Justice Secretary, but nevertheless, I'm pleased to see the honourable gentleman. He must have missed the debate, because in the debate, of course, I said sorry for the anxiety caused whilst Kibatu was at large, and I repeat that, and it's hugely important that Dame Lynn Ann Owens now gets to the bottom of what has happened with her further investigation.
James Coughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Watching the interview last night, I have to say it was absolutely heartbreaking. And I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I do think he owes it to offer an apology here on the floor of the House. But he should have done that at the start of his remarks, Mr. Speaker. These are very serious matters, Mr. Speaker, which is why I want to ask him a further very important question. Can he reassure the House that since Kibatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, the House is thankfully quiet, so I'm surprised the honourable gentleman didn't hear me when I said that, of course, I apologise and I'm sorry for the anxiety caused. But look, let me just remind him that he was a justice minister that allowed our prisons to get to this state in the first place. And it's now for us to fix the mess that we've got into. It's important that Dame Lynn Ann Owens can now continue her work and understand what is happening. He knows that early release has begun under their watch in 2021.
Mr. Speaker, these are extremely serious crimes that we are talking about. I'm going to ask him the question again. Can he reassure the House that since Kibatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a very specific question for him to answer.
Deputy Prime Minister.
After his release, I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had in the prison system. It is important that Lynn Owens is able to get to the bottom of her work. I suspect there'll be more checks and balances we need to do. What we inherited was a complicated system that they set up, letting people out on the sly. That's part of the problem, and we're trying to fix it.
James Cartledge.
Mr. Speaker, he's the Justice Secretary. He's responsible for the justice system. He needs to take responsibility, and I'm asking him a straight question. And I'm going to repeat it once more for the avoidance of doubt, because he didn't answer it twice. He's here to answer questions. Can he reassure the House that since COP30 was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a clear question. Can he give an answer?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Get a grip, man. I know I'm the Justice Secretary. That's why I'm at the dispatch box, also as Deputy Prime Minister. We know that. I'm not going to pray in aid. Dame Anne Owens is a former Deputy Commissioner in London, head of the NCA. It is for her to get to the bottom of that work. Of course, we know that there have been spikes since 2021 under his watch. When did he come to this House and apologise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of government is to take...
I want to hear both. Quiet. James Carter.
Mr. Speaker, it's getting noisier now, so just in case he didn't hear me. He's the Justice Secretary. Can he reassure the House that since...
Order. I will have no gestures from the balcony. Let me reassure you, don't gesture to me. It's not a wise decision. This is important. Prime Minister's questions, all our constituents are listening.
People in Epping and right across the country want to know the answer, Mr. Speaker. So I'm going to ask him again. He's the Justice Secretary. Can he reassure the House that since COP30 was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? Can he answer the question?
Deputy Prime Minister.
I've got to tell you, I spent 14 years in opposition and I did a hell of a lot better than he's just done. I have answered the question. Under their watch, prisons were in a mess. Suicides went up. Prison officers cut. 20,000 neighbourhood polices lost. We've deported more in the last year than they deported in the last 5 years. Please, I'm not going to take any lecture from the honourable gentleman.
Mr. Jewis and Mr. Stafford, you test my patience each week. Today's not the day to test my patience. We do have quite a bank holiday, so I certainly wouldn't want to be testing it at the moment. James Cartledge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The public are extremely concerned about what happened in the COP30 case. They want to know there won't be a repeat. So I'm putting to him a very clear question about his responsibilities. I repeat, can he reassure the House that since COP30 was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? Can he answer the question?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to being up against the member for Newark next time. In 25 years in this House, I've not witnessed a more shameful spectacle, frankly, than what the party opposite left in our justice system. Their criminal negligence on his watch as a former Justice Minister. They left our prisons on the brink of collapse entirely, threatening to allow offenders to run wild on our streets. He knows that. Rape victims waiting years for their day in court. He knows that. Neighbourhood policing decimated, leaving our people feeling unsafe in their communities, and they haven't learned a thing. We are tackling knife crime, that's why it's falling. 13,000 more bobbies we are putting on the streets, kicking out 5,000 foreign criminal offenders. I've got to say to the honourable gentleman, he should do better.
Jonathan Blash. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent, Georgia Hart.
More, I got it to 6. James Cartledge. Order. It is 6. I'm all right. 6. You've had your 6. Sorry, I was correct. Jonathan Blash.
Mr. Speaker.
Jonathan Brash.
Mr. Speaker, my constituent, Georgia Hart, was just 15 years old when she was diagnosed with Friedreich's ataxia, a cruel and degenerative condition that slowly robs a person of their mobility and independence. Since then, her courageous parents have battled day in and day out to raise awareness and money to get her the treatment she needs. There is now a drug, omavalaxolone, which has been proven to slow the progression of the disease. Yet despite this, it's been stalled by NICE, partly because the number of patients affected is judged to be above the limit for ultra-rare conditions. Georgia and those like her are being failed not because the science isn't there, not because the treatment isn't there, but because simply the numbers do not add up. Does the Deputy Prime Minister agree we cannot allow bureaucracy to stand in the way of life-changing treatment? And will he commit to ensuring that I, along with Ataxia UK, can meet the relevant minister at the earliest opportunity so that Georgia and her families do not lose more precious time?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, like the honourable member for Braintree, it doesn't seem that the spokesman can count, let alone stand up on behalf of the public. But can I thank my honourable friend? Our NHS has a strong record in delivering new medicines for rare diseases, and that evaluation process is rightly led by NICE. As I understand, the manufacturer of the new treatment for Friedreich's ataxia has withdrawn from this process. However, the door remains open for the company to re-engage, and I'm very happy to arrange a meeting that my honourable friend is seeking more broadly to help ensure everyone gets the care they deserve while investing an additional £29 billion in the National Health Service.
Daisy Cooper, Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my party, can I join the Deputy Prime Minister in expressing our horror at the terrifying knife attack at the weekend and pay tribute to all those, including the emergency services, who put themselves in harm's way to protect others. And as we approach Remembrance Sunday, can I also join him in remembering all those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our rights and our freedoms? Those rights and freedoms are now under threat in a way that we have not seen since the Second World War. Putin is waging war on our continent and interfering in democracies across Europe. The Chinese government is waging espionage against this House, and Elon Musk is inciting violence on our streets. To date, the government has failed to heed our calls for a new inquiry into Russian meddling, failed to place China on the enhanced tier of country threats, and failed to launch an MI5 investigation into the threat posed by Elon Musk. So can I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, what will it take for the government to act and protect our democracy?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, I'm very grateful to the honourable lady. Can I just remind her, as Foreign Secretary, I stood at this dispatch box and I spoke to the China audit that we said we would do in coming into government, and we did that. I did it on the same day that we published our national security strategy, and of course my defence colleague has also published the Strategic Defence Review. She looks across all three of those documents. They set this country in the best place possible to face down the threats that she rightly refers to.
Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope the Deputy Prime Minister in his new role will consider our calls again. But right now, families across the country are struggling with a cost of living crisis, yet the Chancellor is preparing to increase taxes. Meanwhile, because of high interest rates and arcane Treasury rules to do with quantitative easing, the big banks are making billions of pounds in windfall profits that they never expected, that they never relied on, and never had to take any risk to earn. So without asking the Deputy Prime Minister to preempt the Chancellor's budget, can I ask the Deputy Prime Minister which he thinks is fairer, taxing struggling families or taxing big banks?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, she knows. We've got 80 years of convention, and it is for the Chancellor of the Exchequer to present her budget later on this month. But can I just say gently to her, it is under her government, in which they were in coalition with the Conservatives, that we saw austerity right across our country. And she will know that there are major parties proposing austerity again, and I know that the Chancellor will do everything she can to continue, as she set out yesterday, to invest in our NHS and our public services.
Tristan Osborne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The leader of my local council, Kent County Council, has said that there is a shop window on Reform UK, with councillors facing criminal charges, inappropriate conduct and behaviour, a defection, 5 expulsions, a failed Doge cost-cutting drive and an authoritarian leader who shouts and swears at colleagues. Does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that the people of Kent deserve so much better? And how is the government going to ensure that we deliver higher standards in local government?
Prime Minister.
I see the honourable member for Clacton in his seat. Reform said, this may be the first time I've seen him in Prime Ministers, but Mr. Speaker, Reform said that Kent County Council would be the best advert for what a Reform government would look like. They're delivering on the chaos that they promised and on standards in public life. I say to the honourable gentleman, no, Mr. Speaker, this is serious. I used to replace the honourable gentleman on LBC, so we've known each other for many years. The disgraceful, racist language that we heard from a Reform MP last week belongs in the dark ages, and he should
Eben Flynn.
It feels like it comes around quicker every year, Mr. Speaker, because the 22nd to the 28th of November marks BBC Scam Awareness Week, and by sheer coincidence, the Chancellor has chosen that week of all weeks to deliver her budget. So given her previous broken promises on energy bills, on inflation and to businesses, can he confirm to the public that if they see something suspicious on tax at the budget, they should report it?
Deputy Prime Minister.
I usually look forward to the bombast that the honourable gentleman brings to the chamber, but as usual, the SNP will say anything to distract from their appalling record. In the week where Scotland's Health Secretary had to apologise for the state of the health service on their watch, he could have mentioned that in his question. We will see what is in the budget later on this month.
Charlotte Little.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know the thoughts of the whole House will be with everyone affected by the Huntingdon attack, and we should praise the actions of the trained driver, Andrew Johnson, and the heroic guard, Sami Zatuni. In my mind, a worthy candidate for consideration for the George Cross, as we wish him well in his continued recovery. Andrew Johnson told ITV News he was, quote, just doing his job. Will the Deputy Prime Minister take this opportunity from the dispatch box to recognise the importance of our railway crews, drivers and station staff, and the vital role they play in keeping us all safe, from averting suicides on the rail network to dealing with antisocial behaviour and emergencies like we've seen this week?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. The actions of the driver, Andrew Johnson, and the trained staff member, Sami Zatuni, were nothing less than heroic. And I'm sure that the whole House would agree that some form of recognition is absolutely deserved. Our country is defined by these people working on the front line, caring for and supporting the public every single day. I'm proud to be part of a government that's fighting for them, increasing their pay, tackling the cost of living crisis and fixing the public services that we rely on.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And on Sunday and on Tuesday, we will honour those that made the ultimate sacrifice from not only this country, but across the Commonwealth. Which is why I wear not only the poppy, but the marigold to honour the Commonwealth troops that gave their lives. But next Sunday, the week on Sunday, will be the parade at the Cenotaph by the Association of Jewish Ex-Servicemen and Women, where Jewish people will come together. Veterans, men, women and children will parade with the medals that their forefathers won during World War II and the Great War and other conflicts. So it will be particularly apposite to this year, with anti-Semitism on the rise, that a senior cabinet minister comes to that parade and lays a wreath on behalf of this House and the whole country to remember the Jewish people that gave their lives for this country so we could all be free.
Deputy Prime Minister.
I'm very grateful to the honourable member for his question. I bought a new suit this morning because my godmother said she would be watching. But his question brings to mind the West Indies Regiment and their contribution in 2 world wars. And I'm very grateful to the honourable member for Sunderland South for ensuring that despite wearing a new suit, I've managed to put my poppy on. We wear the poppy to remember all those who fought and died for this country. They represented every walk of life, every race and every religion. My ministerial colleague, the Noble Lord Coker, will be proud to lay a wreath at the annual remembrance event at the Cenotaph to mark our enduring gratitude to generations of Jewish service personnel and veterans. And I'd like to thank Ajax for organising the event and for all they do throughout the year to keep alive the memory of Jewish people, many of whom are in my constituency, their descendants in my constituency in Stamford Hill, who gave their lives for this country.
Georgian Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I'm regularly contacted by leaseholders and residential freeholders from across Ashford, Hawkinge and villages who raise concerns about rising property management fees, poor service and lack of transparency over what they are being charged for. As they already pay council tax, it is wrong they pay extra for maintenance of roads and green areas on their estates. Will the Deputy Prime Minister update the House on the actions the government is taking to reform the current outdated system so that my constituents can look forward to having stronger rights, greater powers and improved protections?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, for millions of leaseholders, the dream of home ownership has fallen woefully short of what was promised. That's why we're implementing the Leasehold and Freehold Reform Act, providing homeowners with greater rights, power and protections. We'll bring the injustice of fleasehold to an end, protecting people from unfair costs. And as he knows, my honourable friend for Greenwich is going to meet the director of First Port to address serious concerns over their performance.
Pete Wishart.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On Monday at the dispatch box, the Defence Secretary said the Scottish Government were a threat to national security. A charge repeated this morning by the Scottish Secretary. What he, in effect, was saying is that a democratically elected government, elected by 1.3 million Scots, possess a threat to this country. I don't know if it's something the Deputy Prime Minister will repeat at the dispatch box today, but can he tell me why democratic Scotland is a threat to national security and China is not?
Deputy Prime Minister.
I took a DNA test a few years ago. I'm 5% Scot. The people of Scotland are not a threat. They're not a threat to national security. It's the SNP. And their desire to get rid of nuclear deterrent that's a threat to national security. You should hide his head in shame.
Lee Ingham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is at this time of year that many of us think of those who have served their country and continue to do so. Those like my granddad, who served in World War II and brought up my dad and my uncles in forces accommodation. Those like my nephew, currently serving, who sends me videos of accommodation riddled with black mould. So would the Deputy Speaker, the Deputy Prime Minister, welcome with me the new Defence Housing Strategy announced this week, which will guarantee the end of the scandal of unfit forces accommodation? And will he guarantee to my residents in Stafford, Eccleshall and the villages, the 500 plus military families, that they will finally have accommodation fit for them?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, can I pay tribute to my honourable friend for championing our armed forces who make extraordinary sacrifices to keep our country safe. We are renewing our country, and that includes renewing our contract with those who commit the ultimate sacrifice.
4,000 military homes. That's 9 out of every 10 are going to be upgraded thanks to the $9 billion that we are investing. And of course, that will include her constituency, homes fit for heroes, delivered by a Labour government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I echo the words of the member for Harrow East of how proud I am to wear the marigold alongside my poppy. Last year, Sadiq Khan was elected London Mayor with a promise to keep a police station front counter open in all 32 London boroughs 24 hours a day. Labour have just broken that promise to Londoners, as only 2 will remain. This year, the Met Police has 1,419 fewer police officers and staff, fewer people working hard to keep Londoners and our visitors safe. But in Sutton and Cheam, we've just had our High Street police team cut from 11 to just 4 officers, inevitably leaving my constituents less safe. So does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with the Liberal Democrats and Sir Mark Rowley that a shrinking Met Police force compromises their ability to keep Londoners safe?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, as he knows, the previous government cut police officers and PCSOs while also critically underfunding the criminal justice system. We're acting in London, funding the Met, Mr. Speaker, up to $262 million this year, and we're investing $200 million this year to put 3,000 more neighbourhood police on our streets by spring. Through our crime and policing bill, we'll also give them powers that they need, including enough tough new respect orders to tackle crime and make our streets safer. But I do just say gently to the honourable member, because he's a Liberal Democrat, they come to their feet, they ask for more funding, and then given the opportunity, they vote against the reforms that will actually grow our economy.
Laura Kirk-Smith.
Mr. Speaker, in Aylesbury I've been running a programme called Your Voice, Your Future to help young people engage with politics and shape the issues that matter to them. They've sent in ideas for the school curriculum review, they've advocated for better mental health support, and they've shared their fears about smartphones and social media. Will the Deputy Prime Minister join me in recognising the contributions and ideas of young people, and what more will he do to ensure that they can meaningfully engage in national policy?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, can I applaud my honourable friend? She's a passionate champion of the next generation. She will have seen my right honourable friend, the member for Sunderland South, launch her curriculum review, which will deliver high standards for every child, giving them the skills they need to thrive and boost their engagement in our democracy. And I'm proud that we'll also be giving 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote in our UK elections, to make their powerful voices heard.
Mr. Speaker, burning waste is as polluting as burning coal, and we already have incinerator overcapacity. So when will this government renew the last government's pause on new incinerators? When will it end perverse deliver or pay contracts with incinerator companies? And when will it deliver an incineration tax, like the landfill tax, to encourage waste reduction, reuse and recycling?
Deputy Prime Minister.
The honourable gentleman is very experienced. He knows that our country's future on energy is in renewables. That's why we're investing in renewables, and he should listen carefully to what the Right Honourable Prime Minister has got to say when he gets to COP. The Chancellor will have heard his observation in terms of further taxes. He's got to wait until the end of the month to see what happens.
Adam Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since this government has massively boosted the national minimum wage for young people, my constituents in Erewash earn far more than the £3.40 an hour I got paid in my first job just 17 years ago. What is the Deputy Prime Minister's response then to those, including the Conservatives and Reform, who claim that £10 an hour is too high a wage for young workers? And does he happen to know whether any of the Reform leaders' dozen extra jobs pay him less than £10 an hour?
Well, I was looking at the honourable member for Clacton's member's interests, and he's making quite a lot out of gold bullion. You've got to ask, why does he want to cut the minimum wage for people who are not making
even 1% of what he is. The Labour Party's on the side of young people, boosting their wages and delivering the youth guarantee to help everyone realise their potential. And I hope young people recognise what the two other parties want on their record.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People across the country are fed up of extensive and needless delays caused by road, rail and utility works happening at the same time, a failure to coordinate. My Transport Duty to Coordinate bill would fix this and cut disruption, supporting communities and the economy. Now, I understand the government is looking for ways to support the economy, apparently. Will he pass on my proposal to the Chancellor and back my bill?
Deputy Prime Minister.
I'll certainly pass them on to the Chancellor.
Tom Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Seeing a dentist is crucial not just for people's dental health, but also for their broader health and well-being. But access to NHS dentistry has been a growing problem for a number of years. And in my constituency of East Worthing and Shoreham, only 2 out of 10 dentists are taking on new adult NHS patients, and the number is the same for children. So can the Deputy Prime Minister set out what this government is doing to improve access to NHS dentistry and to put a healthy smile on my constituents' faces?
Deputy Prime Minister.
My honourable friend is right to raise this issue. It's an important issue up and down the country. We're taking action to address the appalling inheritance received by rolling out extra urgent and emergency appointments across the country. We're also reforming the dental contract, recruiting more dentists and making sure that they work in the National Health Service for a minimum of 3 years.
Mr. Speaker, the inclusion of Oxford University Hospital Trust in the rapid review of maternity and neonatal services is welcome, and reports today in the New Statesman and Channel 4 speak to failures at that trust. Will the Deputy Prime Minister commit that the outcomes of Baroness Amos's review will be carried out in full, and commit to this House that the review is the start of a sea change in maternity services and not a whitewash?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Baroness Amos is a dear friend of mine, and I know that the Health Secretary is considering her recommendations.
Janet Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have seen Hurricane Melissa devastate Jamaica and leave the country in crisis. The Imperial College Storm Model states that the hurricane was unlikely without climate change. Now, I know that Prime Minister is at COP30 representing the UK against climate change, but I asked my right honourable good friend, the Deputy Prime Minister, if he will ensure that the UK leads the way on preventing climate change.
Deputy Prime Minister, you're right.
Well, I'm deeply saddened by the loss of life and the scenes of devastation in the great country of Jamaica. And like the honourable member, I have relatives in Jamaica, and I thank and commend my honourable friend for her personal fundraising efforts. The Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary have been in touch with their counterparts to offer our full support, with 7.5 million of aid funding already mobilised. We've chartered flights from Jamaica for British nationals who are unable to fly home commercially. Jamaica will also receive 71 million from the Caribbean Risk Insurance Pool, funding which begun under the previous Labour government that they can draw on for their renewal.
Rishi Sunak.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Deputy Prime Minister for joining me at a recent event in Parliament to support the work of Prostate Cancer Research, a charity where I am an ambassador. He and I both believe that introducing a targeted national screening programme for prostate cancer is the right thing to do and would save lives. So does he also agree that the recent compelling results of the 162,000 patient European trial support this case, and that this evidence, alongside data from Prostate Cancer Research and others, should be given significant weight by the UK's National Screening Committee?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, can I thank the right honourable member. Too many of us will sadly know someone affected by prostate cancer, and I have too many members of my family that are living currently with prostate cancer, which is why I'm very proud to co-chair the Prostate Cancer Research event this year and last year with him, and I share his determination to boost research, speed up treatment and deliver better care. Now, he knows I'm biased, but these are rightly decisions for the Health Secretary. The UK National Screening Committee is reviewing the latest evidence of prostate screening and considering whether any changes should be made to save lives. We've invested £42 million jointly with prostate...
Jenny Riddle-Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the past 15 years, there have been 170 cases of matricide, and in 2022, more women were killed by their sons than by strangers. Child-to-parent abuse is often linked to complex mental health, and earlier this year, I met with Laura and Ian, who are doing all they can to support their son with his rehabilitation after serving time in prison. Mr. Speaker, they are living in constant fear of physical harm from their son, who they love and adore. Will the Deputy Prime Minister support me in meeting the relevant minister to discuss the effects of child-to-parent abuse?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Matricide is a horrific crime, and we're committed to tackling it. Our VORG strategy will set out how we will halve violence against women, including domestic abuse, over the next decade. And, of course, I'll arrange for the Minister to meet with her.
Final question, Martin Vickers.
Mr. Speaker, Lindsay Oil Refinery in my constituency is under threat of closure with the loss of hundreds of jobs. A number of expressions of interest have been shown in taking over the whole site. If one of those passes the test of due diligence, could the Deputy Prime Minister give an assurance that the government will back the project and allow the continuation of operations at the refinery?
Deputy Prime Minister.
I can't give him that assurance from the dispatch box, but I will, of course, ensure that the relevant minister meets with him.
A point of order, is it to correct the number of questions that I was right and you were wrong? I hope you're not going for a job at the Treasury. Come on then, James Cameron.
It's on a serious issue, I think, Mr. Speaker, just to be clear. The Telegraph are reporting that a police manhunt has been launched for a second asylum seeker mistakenly freed from prison. The question is, Mr. Speaker, can you advise me on how I can ask the Justice Secretary whether he was aware of this when I asked him about it repeatedly in Prime Minister's question?
Do you want to? No. You put it on the record. Right, let's just move on. Front bench change over. We now come to the urgent question. Dame Priti Patel.
Speaker, to ask the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs if she'll make a statement on the government's approach to the worsening conflict in Sudan.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will join me in condemning the shocking violence against civilians in El Fasher. The latest reports, including 460 civilians being killed in a single attack, are harrowing. This is part of a pattern of appalling violence perpetrated against civilians. And it is just one element of the suffering driven by the war in Sudan, a conflict that has now created the worst humanitarian crisis on record. Over 30 million people need aid, and 12 million people have been displaced. Famine is spreading, and cholera is also now widespread, with life-saving assistance continuing to be blocked by the parties. As the Foreign Secretary said at the Manama Dialogue over the last weekend, no amount of aid can resolve a crisis of this magnitude until the guns fall silent. The world must do more. The UK is using all tools at our disposal to protect civilians, to get humanitarian aid to those in most need, and to secure a lasting ceasefire in Sudan. A year ago, the UK, along with Sierra Leone, brought a resolution to the UN Security Council. This would have brought forward concrete measures to protect civilians if it were not so cynically vetoed by Russia. 6 months ago, we brought international partners to London to host the London Sudan Conference to build consensus around strengthening humanitarian access and ending the war. On the 30th of October, we called an emergency UN Security Council session condemning the assault on Al Fasher by the RSF and its devastating impact on the civilian population. We led a press statement to maintain the spotlight on the situation and pressure on the RSF to de-escalate in line with UN Security Council Resolution 2736. On Saturday, the Foreign Secretary announced a further £5 million in aid in response to the situation in Al Fasher, which will provide life-saving food and health assistance, as well as support to survivors of sexual violence. This is on top of the £23 million we've already mobilised from existing budgets through partners such as the ICRC and the Sudan Humanitarian Fund. We're providing £120 million this year to the crisis in Sudan, and both the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary have been clear that this funding is protected. We will keep working at every level to bring this horrific conflict to an end.
Foreign Secretary Dame
Mr. Speaker, for granting this urgent question, the atrocities of recent days, including in Al Fasher, are beyond horrifying. The suffering inflicted on the Sudanese people by this war is an affront to humanity. Red lines have been crossed in the prosecution of this conflict that cannot be allowed to stand, especially by the UK as the penholder on Sudan at the UN Security Council. Britain needs to use its influence to coordinate a robust and stronger international action, to tighten the screws on the warring parties, press them into a ceasefire, and end this barbaric conflict. The government must go further and upgrade our support for those documenting evidence of these heinous crimes. So can the Minister confirm that that will happen? Will the Minister introduce more hard-hitting sanctions on the key operators and take concerted action to deter entities, individuals and businesses whose support continues to sustain this awful conflict? Are actions of this nature being coordinated with international partners? And what progress has been made to build up organic civilian political groups so that Sudan can move back to a civilian government after the ceasefire? It is essential that we have a credible day-after plan as soon as possible. On the dire humanitarian crisis, are the changing territorial positions of the warring parties having an impact on the ability to deliver aid? And if so, what is the plan to counter this? We note the announcement earlier this month, I think last week in Bahrain, of the £5 million being provided for emergency aid support for the survivors of sexual violence in Al Fasher. The whole House will recognise the importance of getting aid to them. So what can the Minister say about the delivery of this urgently needed aid, and how is that happening? What discussions has the UK government had with the Sudan Quad in recent days? And how does the Minister define the UK's relationship with the Quad now and moving forward? Can the Minister also share his latest assessment of the region's wider ability to manage the fallout from this terrible conflict, and whether the government has carried out an assessment of what different outcomes from this conflict would mean for the security of the Red Sea? Mr. Speaker, those carrying out the atrocities in Sudan need to know that the whole world is watching them, they can see what they are doing, and that there will be consequences.
Minister.
I thank the Right Honourable Lady for that important set of questions. On questions of accountability, we continue to lead the core group in Geneva. We are supporting the fact-finding mechanism of the United Nations. It is absolutely vital that work on accountability and justice continues. Those at the top of both the RSF and the Sudanese armed forces are responsible for the conduct of their forces, and they must be held accountable for the conduct of their forces. She is right, too, to raise questions about humanitarian aid. I can confirm, I'm afraid, that the shifting of the front lines is affecting aid delivery, and clearly aid is not reaching Al Fasher in the volumes that are required. The reports, including from the World Health Organization last week, of both the events in Al Fasher and the consequences for civilians are horrifying. I can confirm that both the Foreign Secretary and I in the region over the course of the weekend were in touch with many key players, including members of the Quad, the Secretary General of the Arab League and a range of others. This is a situation of the utmost urgency and more must be done.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Emily Thornbury.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The UN, as penholder for Sudan at the Security Council, has already played an important role in terms of calling an urgent Security Council meeting this week. But what the Honourable Gentleman says about Russia chimes with the experience that we had as a select committee when we visited New York, where we were told that it was suggested to us that the UK has held back from raising Sudan at the Security Council because of knowing that Russia was likely to veto it. So beyond direct aid funding, which I know is a priority for the Prime Minister, what can the United Kingdom do to focus the minds of the international community of the unfolding tragedy in Sudan, which has gone overlooked for far too long?
Minister.
I thank my right honourable friend for the question, and I know she's experienced in these issues. We continue. Questions of aid are absolutely vital, but as the Foreign Secretary has said over the weekend, simply aid is not enough in a conflict of this magnitude. We are working with all parties to try and ensure that there is a change in behaviour from the two conflict parties. They are taking steps which are not only inflicting horrific hardship and violence upon the civilians of North Darfur and wider Sudan, but also restricting that vital flow of aid, which is so important. We will continue to work with a range of international partners, including the members of the Quad, in order to try and bring this conflict to a close. The Quad statement of the 12th of September is important. All external parties providing support to either side in the conflict must stop.
Callum Miller, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Mr. Speaker, the Rapid Support Forces capture of El Fasher has ushered in a new phase of terror following its 18-month siege, and reports of systematic sexual violence against women and the summary execution of civilians are truly horrific. The Minister referred to the UN Security Council, which met last week, and demanded that all parties to the conflict protect civilians and abide by their obligations under international law. It is clear that those obligations are being entirely ignored. As the penholder for Sudan at the UN, the UK has a unique responsibility to show leadership and ensure that protection for citizens is more than just words. So I have three questions for the Minister. First, can he confirm whether the UK sought at the UN to secure a countrywide arms embargo? Second, does the government consider that the UAE is a party to the conflict? And third, in light of reports that British weapons have been supplied by the UAE to the RSF, will the government ban arms sales to the UAE until it can be proven that Abu Dhabi is not re-exporting British arms to the RSF?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take the opportunity just to be clear about some of these reports about British arms, because I can see from previous discussions in this chamber that there is some confusion. There was an article which made reference to a range of different arms that might be in use in Sudan. I've already spoken about the importance that all external parties do not support the two parties. And let me be clear, the UK is providing no arms which are of use in the conflict. The article referred to, as I understand it, a seatbelt or a harness, which is not a prohibited item, components of an engine, and a target practice item for which all exports were stopped in 2017. Now, I want to reiterate how carefully and strictly we interpret our arms obligations, but I want to clear up any confusion for the House. These are not items that in some cases are prohibited at all. None of those items are eligible for export at the moment, and none of those items would make any difference to the conflict scenes that we're discussing this afternoon.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. The situation in Sudan is beyond devastating. Indeed, Sudan's own ambassador has warned that there is a genocide taking place there. But I really want to urge the Minister, as we focus on those that are being violated. So can he ensure that the UK government is going to be leading all the international efforts to bring the perpetrators of the disgraceful violence against women and girls to justice, no matter how long that process takes?
No. Minister.
My honourable friend asked a critical question, and I'm pleased to confirm to her that today the UK has called for a special session of the UN Human Rights Council in our capacity as leader of the Sudan Core Group. This is further action on our part to ensure that, exactly as she says, there is accountability and scrutiny in this horrific conflict.
Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee.
Obviously, it's absolutely appalling for the people there, but we can't insulate ourselves, can we, from these sort of conflicts? And Mali is about to be taken over by terrorists all over Africa. Young, energetic young men are fleeing, walking across to Libya, being tortured, ending up in Calais. It just seems to me we must think out of the box on this. We shouldn't be washing our hands of that. I'm with my right honourable friend. Why are we cutting overseas aid at this precise moment when the whole of Africa is in absolute turmoil? We're not an island. They're coming here. It'd be much better, actually, if we arrested and deported these young men, sent them back with some help, not just deport them, not just lock them up, send them help and help rebuild Sudan, Eritrea, Somalia. Well, after all, we are one planet, aren't we?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Father of the House and my neighbour for the question. His questions often surprise me in the Chamber. And I want to confirm to him that I'm very much alive to the issues that he describes. I was in Algiers, I think 2 weeks ago, where I met young men exactly of the profile he describes, seeking to leave Mali, getting stuck somewhere on their way to the UK. The conditions that they find themselves in are very much more brutal than what the cruel human traffickers tell them when they leave their home country, and many of them wish to return. I will have to check subsequently, but I think the number from the support that we have provided in Algeria is 6,000 of men and women who will have returned to their country rather than attempt their onwards forward journey into Europe and possibly eventually to the UK. This is vitally important work. In our efforts to smash the gangs and stop the boats, we must look, as he says, right back to the places of origin, which includes some of the places we're talking about today.
James Nish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At present, it's estimated that 11.7 million civilians have been forcibly displaced, of which 840,000 are currently in Chad, which of course has its own issues. I wondered if the Minister could update us on what support is being provided to Chad and neighbouring countries who are currently housing refugees from Sudan.
Mr. Speaker, we have a programme of supporting refugees displaced in the region. As my honourable friend rightly says, there are a range of challenges for Sudan's neighbours, and the burden of refugee support falls particularly heavily, often on places with the fewest resources of their own. I'm very happy to write to him with some of the specific details about Chad, but after serving 2 years in Juba during the time of the Right Honourable Gentleman as the Secretary of State for DFID, I know what a significant impact it can have. Conflict in the region does indeed displace large numbers of people with huge pressures on the public services elsewhere.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for granting this urgent question today and underlining the importance of this matter by allowing further discussion on Sudan in the House. The Minister is doing a very good job, but the whole House needs top-level Prime Ministerial involvement in this, in the same way that Sir Tony Blair and my noble friend Lord Cameron were involved when they were Prime Minister, because what we are witnessing is wholesale slaughter. It's not today about money and humanitarian aid. It's about impunity, that these murderous thugs are bragging online about their part in the ethnic cleansing which is taking place. We need to keep very strong records to hold as many of these people as we can to account. And we need more action at the UN where Britain holds the pen. We need to demand access for an African Union UN delegation to go to El Fasher and to meet with the leaders of the RSF. And we need to prepare international sanctions to be visited on all their leaders.
Minister.
The Right Honourable Gentleman makes a powerful point based on long years of experience, and I'll certainly discuss his suggestions with the Minister for Africa.
And Lee Stotts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As well as the IPC recently discovering conditions of famine in Al Fasher and in Kadugli, it stated that conditions in Dilling, South Kordofan, are likely similar to Kadugli, but can't be classified due to insufficient reliable data. Does he agree that just as it's unacceptable to indiscriminately kill civilians, health workers and aid workers and restrict aid access, it's also unacceptable to deny access for the purposes of famine classification? And is the government making that point to the belligerents?
Minister.
It's a very important point, and it is absolutely vital that IPC has the access it requires in order to make its classifications. I note with alarm and dismay how often this House is relying upon IPC classifications, not just in Sudan, but of course in Gaza as well, and it is vital that they can do their work properly, so their classifications, which are the world standard, can be relied upon.
Ray Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last night at the adjournment debate, I called for a Lancaster House-style conference to be called for all the parties in the Sudan conflict so that a way to peace can be found. Calls were also expressed from government benches for a peace-making force. Due to the urgency of the situation, can the Minister please see to it that both these suggestions are investigated and discussions opened with our partners in the region, including Nigeria, so that these can be enacted? Thank you.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I take note of the honourable gentleman's suggestions. I'm sure he'll be aware that 6 months ago we did host, I think it was in Lancaster House, a conference for the whole world in order to try and make progress on this question. We did so mostly privately, given the sensitivities for all involved. We will continue to do all that we can diplomatically, both publicly in the UN, behind closed doors, as part of a concerted effort to try and bring this violence to an end.
David Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to associate myself with the comments, the remarks from the Honourable Member for Rugby yesterday, who noted that in previous conflicts in the world there had been concerted efforts to bring in some form of UN peacekeeping force. I note that this is not something, unfortunately, in today's world that seems to be very popular, and I forgive the Minister if he thinks this is a naive question, but what efforts, in addition to the humanitarian aid that we're giving, the diplomacy we're doing, can we do to actually stop civilians being killed right now by looking at any form of peacekeeping force, whether it be UN or African Union or whatever might, a coalition of the willing, to stop the civilians being killed right now?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend asks the right set of questions. Of course, the first priority must be a ceasefire. There has been, as I know my honourable friend knows, peacekeeping forces in Darfur before, and they have faced very considerable difficulties in exercising their mandate when the conflict parties are not themselves prepared to take that vital first step, which is a ceasefire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've asked it before and I'll ask the Minister again. When is the government going to publish its Africa strategy, North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa? Because I fear there'll be other events like this, other conflicts like this. And as the UK, the US and the French have divested politically, economically, diplomatically, and in terms of provision of aid, we've seen others fill the vacuum, such as China and Russia and proxies and terrorist groups, etc. So unless the US and the UK and the French and other partners and allies get together and get back into Africa to support fragile governments, stopping them becoming failed governments, we are likely to see our adversaries advance all over Africa, including Commonwealth countries, and we're more likely to see more bloodshed, more rape, more torture, and to quote one of our UK papers, hell on earth in Sudan.
Minister. I thank the honourable gentleman for his commitment to these issues. I'd reassure him, I think I've been in North Africa twice in 2 weeks, and we will continue as a ministerial team to pay Africa the attention that it deserves. I'll have to revert to him on the question of the timetable for publishing the Africa strategy.
Mr. Speaker, despite being the largest humanitarian catastrophe on the planet, despite the mass rape and slaughter of civilians, when it comes to Sudan, it feels like the world has taken a moral holiday. The atrocity in Al Fasher were entirely foreseeable. This conflict isn't new. I understand the Foreign Secretary is leading the fight to keep Sudan on the agenda and to secure accountability for the mass atrocities in Darfur. But does the Minister agree with me that it's time global leaders followed UK's example and showed the moral resolve and moral courage and the leadership needed to end this deadly assault?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for making that important point. It's one that both I and the Foreign Secretary agree with, and I'll quote the Foreign Secretary from the weekend: the world must do more.
Sir Julian Lewis.
I repeat the question I asked his ministerial colleague last week. Are there no other regional powers that could intervene physically to separate the warring parties? And may I put it to him that whilst it is very fortunate that, thanks to his honourable friend for Oxford East, and now the Shadow Foreign Secretary and Mr Speaker, that we've been granted successive urgent questions on this in successive weeks. It would be a recognition of the anxiety felt in all parts of the House if the government would make regular ministerial statements rather than us having to rely on such applications for urgent questions.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As I'm sure the House knows, this ministerial team is very happy to return to the House on a regular basis, and Mr Speaker provides us plenty of opportunities to do so. I'll take back his comments to the responsible minister, and for reasons I'm sure he'll understand, I'll decline his invitation to comment on the regional balance of military forces.
Tahir Ali.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sudan is facing the worst humanitarian crisis in the world at the moment, with 150,000 people killed in the last 2 years, over 14 million displaced. There's two aspects to this. Humanitarian aid has to get to those that are affected, and it needs to get there urgently. And secondly, what measures will the government take to stop the murder, rape and torture of innocent civilians in Sudan?
Minister.
I agree very much with my honourable friend in what he says about aid access. In terms of the tangible steps that we are taking, we are, as I said earlier, we have called today for an emergency session of the UN Human Rights Council on these questions. We've supported the fact-finding mission. My colleague, the Minister for Africa, conducted an event in the UN General Assembly in September. The Foreign Secretary has described some of the work that she has done as well. We will keep at it as long as it takes.
British-made military equipment has been found in conflict zones in Sudan. This includes Cummins engines found in armoured vehicles, which were not subject to export licensing, did not go through any checks, and were not subject to any diversion checks, having been sent